real punk, rock, kind of contemporary music that you just don't hear on Broadway anymore. What was your first reaction when you first heard the music that you were going to be performing?
For me, it really was the lyrics. Just the lyrics are very metaphorical, and they can be just interpreted in so many ways. And that's why the show is so fresh every night for me, because every time I sing Blue Wind or every time I sing Song Purple Summer, it's always depending on, you know, where I am in my life at that very moment. It's got the meaning of it for me is changing. So it was definitely the lyrics that were haunting for me.
Taylor, what do you think about the conceit and what it accomplishes by having a 120-year-old story being played out in music that you would like to hear on the radio today?
It shows that, I think, that even though this play is over 100 years old, it's still completely relevant and just as important now as it was then. I think that while our society has changed a lot in the last 100 years, there's still a lot we have to go. There's still people who are discriminated against all the time. So I think it kind of just points out to the audience, there's still changes to be made to our world, and you guys can be the change.
My interpretation of the audience being on stage, I don't. Do we give this away at this point? You're only in town for a couple more days. I think most people who have seen it. But as you may know, that when the musical begins, there are 3 rows of seats on either side of the stage, and those are people from the audience who paid $25 to be on the stage. But shortly into the show, you discover that there are some contemporarily dressed people who jump up and pull the microphones out of their jackets and start singing along, which to me seemed like a really incredible sort of way to bridge the gap between 1891 and today, and to be able to say, what those kids are going through right now in this story, it really hasn't changed that much.
That's exactly it.
Thanks.
But Belle said
you, so.
Can I tell actually the original story of why people are sitting on stage?
Oh, please
It's a good story, I think. When they originally performed the play at the Atlantic Theater Company off Broadway, the sound booth in the back of the house took up so many seats that they wanted to, make the money back. So then they just decided to throw the people on stage. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then it became this really cool, we're bridging the gap between modern times and older times, and how, not much has changed. So we should think about that.
Does it feel like a full cast? I mean, are you all, when you've got people who are basically audience members every night, and I'm sure they're understudies for your roles, but is it all one big inclusive group, or does it seem like it's 2 casts?
I feel like we're all one. I think the powerful thing about the show is that it's an ensemble show, and if one person isn't there for the other, well, then we don't have a show. We're all there for each other, and we're all there to support this story that we're trying to tell, and it's such an important story that we have to be there for each other all together, or else the story doesn't work.
I want to talk about audience reaction to the show. As somebody who wrote a very positive review about this show,
Thank you.
Thanks. But it automatically puts me in the crosshairs of readers, as you can imagine. This is a controversial show. It's some people's cup of tea, and to other people it's not. But I'm curious geographically about whether or not the energy that you feel from the audience changes from different parts of the country.
Yeah, entirely. We were just in California, and audiences there were loud and crazy and felt like they were at a rock concert. So sometimes after a song ended, the person sitting next to me on stage would be like, "Ah!" In my face. And I was like, "Oh!" But here in Denver, it's been a little quieter, but the audience is still just as excited about the show, and they're just kind of a different energy in the theater. But it's cool. I mean, that's what makes the show so fun to do on the road, is that every week or 2 when we change cities, it's almost like I'm doing an entirely different show.
Yeah, and it's a give and take. We wouldn't, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. But yeah, it constantly changes, and I've been with the tour for about 1.5 years now, so we've been to about 28 cities, and it's crazy how it ranges from people, 10 people walking out during, the Dark I Know Well, or during the hayloft scene. So yeah, it's been insane to see how people react.
Well, there's also the fan factor as well, and as a lot of you know, Melchior in this production is played by Jake Epstein, who was Craig Manning of Degrassi.
Oh, that
that.
makes sense.
But I know some funny stuff happens to you when people find their way onto the stage. And I'm just wondering if you have any anecdotes about people who take who don't really respect the boundaries. Perhaps.
We have plenty of stories.
On Jake Epstein's opening night as Melchior, the person he was sitting next to happened to be a huge fan of Degrassi, and seconds before he made his very first entrance into the show, the girl next to him just turned and went, "You're gonna be great." And he was like, "Okay," and then just got up to do the show.
A lot of people try to touch you when you're sitting on stage.
Well, you
Is
do
that-
ask them to in song.
It's true, we do.
There's fog effects and stuff. He's noticed people like smelling the
Oh
fog.
yeah, Drew, when the smoke comes out,
Like,
people are
rushing
liking
into
it.
They're breathing in the entire
Oh yeah,
experience.
and you know, after you sing That's a Popular One and you go to sit down in your seat, they're just like, oh my god, you're so amazing.
Well, you guys are young. I mean, do you get jaded after? I mean, or is it still just kind of blow you away that you are affecting people in that way that they can literally reach out and touch you?
Literally.
Literally, yeah.
This show just never gets old for me. It really doesn't. It's certain that there's always, things that you can't control that kind of happen, like dryness, like in Denver, and there's certainly technical performance aspects that change from night to night, but the freshness of the show and telling the story just never gets old for me.
What are some of the testimonials that you guys have received from young people maybe struggling with their own rites of passage and figuring out who they are? This show has had a profound impact on thousands of kids, and I'm sure that you've heard some stories. What have you heard about some of the people out here who've been moved by your show?
I think it's just cool. There are people who have like very close connections to the story. I don't want to spoil anything, but there are like events that happen in the show that people have had like personal connections with. So it ranges from that just to people having like a general knowledge of like teen angst. But it's cool to see how much people are affected by it when it is 100 years ago, because they realize A, they're not alone, and B, it's like not a new thing to be confused as a teenager. Like it's been going on since the beginning of time. And
for me, what's really sad, me and Ilse and Marta sing this song called The Dark I Know Well, and there's been a lot of people who have come up to me, and Sarah Hunt, who plays Marta, to say that how much this song touched them because they were victims of abuse when they were younger. That's always so heartbreaking, but it's always, how it keeps it fresh too is that every time, I step up to the mic to tell this story in The Dark I Know Well, you always know that maybe there's one person in that audience that's gone through that, so you're doing it for them.
And plus, it's not just watching a show like that can have a profound influence on an audience of high school actors too. I taught high school theater at a school that hadn't had a program in about 5 years, and the principal was saying, well, just why don't you do You Can't Take It With You? And I just said, you've got to do theater that moves these people and into creating an emotional love for theater. Do you think at your schools, when you were in high school, just say Spring Awakening rights were available, would your school even let you do it, do you think?
Maybe my school would have, with some cuts. I went to performing arts high school, so I was lucky to have teachers who understand. But there definitely probably would have been some cuts made thanks to the non-performing arts side of the school.
Well, I don't know if anyone knows, but Beverly Hills 90210 performed it.
It's true, at their high school.
Show, yeah, in their high school. I went to a performing arts high school as well. I don't think they would have put it on. I don't know though.
I think it's a show that if a kid gets a chance to do it, they're gonna, whether they go and perform for the rest of their life or not, their life is gonna be profoundly changed from the experience of being able to be in it. And it's funny being in the position that you're in, because those kind of shows don't come around very often. You don't know if when that next kind of life-changing experience is going to be. But with the good also comes, as I sort of mentioned,